Hey, it's Random Code here, and today I'm going to showcase a dockerized setup of an FastAPI Python endpoint, which then utilizes Ollama to actually connect and interact with a LLM. And all of this is going to be inside, again, a Docker container. So just quickly going through what we have. I have a main.py file where I use FastAPI to provide a very, very simple endpoint or /generate where the user would pass the model I would like to utilize and a prompt. This prompt is then passed to a generate response method function, which then utilizes the Ollama chat, so kind of like the Ollama API inside the same Docker container to then pass this prompt, get a response, and then I return the response at the API. So technically just an extra step, but just to showcase that we can have some kind of Python service which could utilize an large language model inside the same service inside a Docker container. To then have all of this running, I created a Docker file, and it's not too complicated, but we have a few steps as we need to do some things to actually get it running. But we are running from a base Python image. Could probably also use an Ollama based image, but I thought it would be interesting to see if we can actually set up everything up kind of manual. We're forcing on interact to ensure it when starting up, it starts without being touched. We then do a simple update and I install like curl and some other libraries allowing me to first of all install Ollama through curl and then later on allowing me to stop Ollama when I'm actually kind of interacting with the startup process. Because again, if you know Docker, run is everything that's being utilized when we build the image. So not when we're actually starting the container, but when we are building the base image. So for the base image, installing some base libraries, installing Ollama, which takes some time, then start Ollama, wait 5 seconds, and install a model for Ollama. And then we stop Ollama. Again, all of this is like the image building process. We then create a working directory. We copy paste requirements.txt, which then is utilized to pip install all the requirements for our Python FastAPI. And we then copy everything else, which just mainly could also be just copying the main.py file. And we then expose port 8000. So that's the build process. When it's then have been built, when it then started, we're then using kind of like shell. We do two things. We both start the Ollama server. And note, because we are also starting the Ollama server and then setting it to the background, we would first need to wait for the Ollama server to start, and then it will start our Python FastAPI endpoint. So when I shortly showcase the startup, it's gonna take a few seconds because it first needs to wait for the Ollama to start before it starts the endpoint. And I have already actually built the image and started it and just stopped it just to make it a bit faster because it takes me, again, my computer is not the fastest, but it takes me about 7-8 minutes to build the image. And it's also quite large. I think we had like 7-8 gigabytes. And the first time it also takes longer for everything to run. So just to make the process a bit more smooth, I'm just going to be restarting a container. But I added a README to showcase the process. To first build, which is simply from our current position with a Docker file called docker build, and then I just give it a tag. Build from our current position to a Docker file. Again, wait about 8 minutes. So then run within just very simply docker run, port forward. Port 8000 is the FastAPI endpoint port. And we start our image. We have been tagged with the name FastAPI app. And in my case, I already did this. I started it and I stopped it. And we can see here I have stopped Docker container running from my FastAPI app. If I then Docker start this, we should see it's gonna take a bit time for everything to get up and running. And comes here, we are just restarting it. We can actually not really see what's happening, but I'm on Windows, so using Docker Desktop, we can see here again we have this container running from the my FastAPI app image. And if we actually click it, we can actually see the console logs being printed inside the container. And we can see here all of this is the process of starting the Ollama model. And I think it might be ready. And then looking back at our Python endpoint, I can then simply use Postman to call localhost port 8000 / generate, and I'll then pass it a body of JSON with the model I want to use and the prompt. As you can see here, I've previously done it, but if we then recall it, let's see if it is ready yet. And it is actually not ready yet, so we're just gonna give it a few more seconds. And we can see now, do docker ps, it has been running for about a minute, so it takes about a minute for the Ollama server to start, and then the Python thing to start. And it should be worth noting this is maybe not the best setup, because we end up having a Docker container which is quite large and it's quite slow to start, but I thought it would be interesting to showcase how we can actually have Ollama running inside Docker container with a specific model, and then have some kind of Python, in this case API using FastAPI, actually interact with this model, allowing us to kind of group all of this functionality in a Docker container. But let's see now. So here we go. We can see now that we actually have the API stuff from FastAPI up and running. And we should then now be able to call it. And we can see that we now get a response. So again, what's happening here? Our Docker container is exposing port 8000 on localhost. We connect to this port. We pass this prompt. It's then passed to the FastAPI Python backend, which then sends it to the Ollama large language model server inside the same container, get a response, and return it to us. So here we kind of have the full process of being able to run all of this inside a single box. And just here at the end, just some thoughts. I think this kind of works, but again, as mentioned, this is not very smooth. And furthermore, if you would actually want to put this up in the cloud and host it yourself, compared to actually using some of the existing API endpoints like OpenAI provides, then I'm not sure this is going to be faster, smarter, better, or cheaper. But I thought it was still an interesting little project, as I had this use case in mind of could I actually build all of this myself and have it run locally as well. And as mentioned, I have this README file where you can see a bit more of the process, and I have a bit more documentation on what I'm actually doing. And of course, all of these files and the README is going to be uploaded to a GitHub repository, which I'm going to be linking in the description. But otherwise, I hope it was insightful to see a bit about this small Docker FastAPI setup. And if you enjoyed this quick showcase, please leave a like and subscribe, and I wish you all a wonderful